Good day, everyone. Live from Cloud City, Seattle. This is This Just In. I'm Justin, and this is the Microsoft Reactor show for developers and entrepreneurs to really talk about tech of the moment. I'm really excited for our kickoff to season 2 here. We're going to be talking about mixed reality. But if you missed it, we had season 1 last year that talked on topics like sustainable software engineering, fusion development, cybersecurity, and a whole host of more. You can check those out on our Microsoft Reactor YouTube as well. Just a reminder that this event is part of our Microsoft Reactor Code of Conduct. Please be nice, be respectful, but most importantly, join your favorite chat platform. We're going to be playing a game today, Guess That Mixed Reality Movie, and have a lot of fun. Give you a chance to ask questions about mixed reality, but also the metaverse. We're also going to be talking about that. It's a very popular buzzword and such as well. But let's go ahead and get started and introduce our guest speakers today. Welcome, April and Thomas.
Hello, how's everyone at home, and how are you two doing today?
Doing well.
Yeah, pretty good. I had a relaxing weekend. It was nice. I've got a busy week this week. For those of us in developer relations at Microsoft, we're going to be doing our own session and learning from each other. So I'm excited about that. As well. It's a chance for us to present to each other as much as present to our customers and our learners out there as well. So yeah, feeling pretty good today.
That's good.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we begin? April and Thomas, would you share a little bit more about your professional backgrounds and why you got involved in mixed reality and such?
All right. Thomas, do I have to go first? Do you want me to go first?
You go first.
All right. So with regards to my background, I came from the luxury fashion industry about 7-8 years ago now, I want to say, and came into tech, started out as a program manager and a project manager doing software implementations, and then transitioned over into advocacy, which is where I am now. Before I was in advocacy, and while I was doing some PM work, I was doing a lot of work in the Python area with virtual assistant or smart assistants and chatbots and such. And it was a lot of fun, but I was at an airport, I think it was LaGuardia in 2019, and I was waiting for a flight, and I was just on Twitter scrolling through. At the time we were doing, I can't remember which Microsoft event, because I know we have a lot, but there was a demo with a HoloLens. And the person who was on stage doing the demo, they were doing real-time speech translation with someone that spoke Japanese, but the speaker that was doing the presentation spoke English. So as she spoke, it translated directly into Japanese on the other person's end. And then as they spoke in Japanese, it came back through as English. And so separately, the technologies, are pretty common, but seeing them put together in this virtual conversation with someone was something that was really amazing for me. And so immediately after I saw that, I had asked everyone on Twitter, well, how can I get started? And from there, people threw resources at me, and the rest is history.
Very cool. I might add, you have one of the coolest backgrounds where your home office is there as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Thomas.
Yeah, so I had been at Microsoft forever. It's been probably about 22, 23 years. I keep forgetting. I have to wait for Twitter to tell me how long it's been. And what happened quite a few years ago was I had a friend who decided to get into virtual reality, and this friend is super, super smart, way smarter than I am. And so I was like, and he had made sort of a career kind of, pivot towards this. So I was like, okay, I got to check this out. And he said, well, the next time you're in Seattle, because I had moved away to Canada for a little while, and now I'm back. He said, when you come back, come to the studio and we'll put a device on you. And he had always said, like, the one way to get people to really understand this is to actually put on a device. Mm-hmm. So I go there, I put on this device, and two things sort of astounded me. One was at one point I'm standing on top of a mountain, and my fear of heights, or I guess it should be my fear of falling, kicked in. And I was like, whoa, like this is pretty wild. And then the other thing, the other demo I did, and I can't remember the name of it, but basically you're down at the bottom of the ocean, standing on the deck of this abandoned ship. And at some point, this whale comes by me and just goes by me. And I felt the water sort of hit me from the whale.
Hmm.
I was wearing no haptic suit or anything like that. This was my brain sort of filling in the holes. And I just remember taking the device off and going, wow, this is a computer that changes your brain chemistry. And I said to him, I said, I think you've changed my career. I'm probably going to need to pivot as well. And so sure enough, that day, I was like, okay, I have to figure out how to get in this industry because this is absolutely the future. And then never looked back.
Yeah, that's inspiring. And you've got a various assortment of devices behind you there. So
Yes.
clearly you're into it, Thomas, and you get to explore the range of different devices like that too. Well, great to have both of you on the series today. We're going to get into a lot of fun discussions, just a bit of liveliness of looking at mixed reality. And such. I'll share real quick what inspired me to mixed reality. It actually goes back to when I was a kid, when I first went on, I think it was a Disney ride. It was called Star Tours. And it was, it kind of reminds me that mixed reality has been around with us, or people have had the idea in concept for some time. It's only more recent technology, miniaturization, commoditization, other things, the technology that has allowed us to really create these new modern devices. But Star Tours for me is where you just sit in a chair and the chair moves this way or backwards and forwards, and you're like going through a spaceship. And it was really, really real to me. So real that I actually got a little motion sick on it. I think I was young and hopefully grew out of that a little bit. But I mostly have a good positive association with it. Turns out that virtual reality makes me a little bit more motion sick, but pass-through, augmented reality, I'm just fine, even if there's images, holograms, or whatnot that are imposed over it as well. So something that I've learned a lot from and such. Well, great. Well, let's start with our audience interaction. So please, again, log into your favorite chat platform if you want. Feel free to post that. We are going to guess that mixed reality movie. Let me throw the screen up there as well, and just have a little fun with this. April, Thomas, I don't know if you already know all these movies or not, but maybe if you could tell us which one you think it is, but tell us a little bit more about the mixed reality experience that is happening in this movie image as well. I took a little bit of liberty here because I think some of these are more like AI than MR in a sense, but depends on how technical you get. All right, our first one is this one.
Okay.
I know what it is, so I won't ruin it for everyone else. But I've never seen the movie.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it's embodied in pop culture, even if people oftentimes haven't seen the movie. It was years. I was an adult before I finally saw it. Thomas, what do you think?
I think I know the answer as well. This is pretty iconic.
Yes, the answer is this is Terminator. I believe Terminator 2 specifically on it as well, where Arnold Schwarzenegger was portrayed as a robot with artificial intelligence. So you could argue this is artificial general intelligence, and so there are mixed reality experiences embedded into, say in this case, the robot's persona. However, we talk about mixed reality, we start talking about humans interacting with environments. So depending on the way you think about it, I don't know if this is quite mixed reality, but it certainly got us started, I think, in the genre. I'm sure there's ones that are older than this, but certainly this is the first one I encountered. Number 2 is this one.
My favorite.
Yeah,
and look at Eve. I like her face here.
Yes. For those of you that are really have sharp eyes, you might notice that the name of the movie might be imprinted on the robot himself in this case, or itself. Yes, Thomas, anything to say about this? Have you seen WALL-E?
Yeah, have you seen it?
No, so I'm very bad. I'm very worried about this because I'm like, I don't watch a whole lot of movies, but I do try to keep up on like what's going on. So when I saw the robot, I was like, oh, that seems like Wall-E, and then I saw the other robot, and so I'm very sure that that's what it does, unless that's just a total way to throw us off. But robotics is awesome. I think that everyone who's in the spatial area, we love space and we love robots, and especially very cute robots. And so one of the things that I've talked about with April and other folks on our team is like, I really hope that someday we can do advocacy around robotics as well, because it's so intertwined with everything spatial as well.
Yeah, and it's certainly very much ingrained in in high school or K through 12 curriculum, college level curriculum with mechanical engineering and such. And so I do think there's a high correlation to people who love the idea of mixed reality with robotics, because that's where the hardware component. What I love about this more than anything is that Wall-E conveys emotion. And so I think of scenarios like emotion detection, sentiment detection, being able to, for Wall-E in this case, to have feelings. And I think that's what makes the movie so heart-touching as well. All right, next one. There we go. It looks like, see, as it's casted over our streaming product here, it looks like it's kind of a little choppy, but this is one of my favorite movies. Now we're getting into true augmented reality and such. What do you think about this one?
This is also a really good movie. And I tend to tell people you can't just hop into any of the movies in this universe. You kind of have to like watch them in order, because they all make sense, especially seeing this one and when the second one comes out. But yeah, Thomas, I'll leave the guesses up to you. Apparently I watch movies, but I was nervous for this.
This is a hard one for me, because I don't think I've actually seen this movie, which I've been told that I should just get off of this podcast and just go ahead and go watch it beforehand. I want to say Black Panther.
Ding, ding, ding. Yes.
Okay.
Nice work, Thomas. So what I love about this one is that like it is like the quintessential augmented reality experience. Like there is a digital car with a steering wheel that is real, but this car is actually being driven in real life. Wow, this one knocked my socks off when I first saw it. What do you think, April?
Yeah, I thought it was cool. And what you can't quite tell from the GIF that's playing, but when the car overlay is gone, it's literally just a seat and a steering wheel, and that's it. And it's not until when Shuri gets closer to the car that it starts to appear. And so while she's driving it, I think was it Chadwick Boseman that was behind the actual seat when they were they in Japan? Is that where they were, Justin? I can't remember.
I can't remember the setting, because that movie was so awesome. It bounced around so many different locations around the world, which is what I love about movies, is seeing the world and that. But I can't recall. It was pretty cool. Awesome. All right, we're getting more into the mixed reality spectrum here. Next is this pair. I will give a hint. One is a real life organic being and one is not, at least in this current state.
I've never seen this one either, and I know it. And I know there's like an entire, like, didn't one of the Disneys do a world for it, or like a area for it in a park?
Yes, I think Disney in Florida, USA has Animal Kingdom and has an avatar set up that's pretty beautiful. Oh, I just gave away the name.
You did. It's okay. But Thomas, have you seen Avatar?
Yeah, I knew it was Avatar, and I hadn't seen it either.
I
need to watch it one day.
I love the visuals on this movie. It's just beautiful. It's so well done from a design perspective and that. But yes, in this movie, we have a real human that is using an augmented reality body that becomes the avatar, the person on the right in this case as well. And he accepts the culture and learns how to behave in a very vastly different culture than the one that he grew up in as well. Fantastic. All right, we just got a couple more. Here's another famous one. definitely mixed reality here.
Yeah. Also, admittedly, haven't seen it, but I know the movie. Thomas, we need to have a team bonding event with just movie.
I know. I'm starting to realize, like, my queue is very small on movies
Yeah.
to watch, but definitely aware of this one, and that there's a new one out.
Yeah.
And also the leading protagonist, Keanu Reeves. Just what a wonderful person. One time I remember someone on Twitter, said, Thomas, you're like Keanu. And I remember just being like giddy from it, because I was just like, oh my gosh, he's such an incredibly wonderful person, and just so not what you expected, especially when you saw him younger in a lot of the other movies, right? In the kind of characters he played. But The Matrix, I think is just that kind of, again, canonical. We all know it. And, I think how often do we say, do you want to take the red pill or the blue pill?
Yeah. I think this is the famous Trinity kick. You can Google or Bing that as well. And certainly the entire state that these humans existed in was a gigantic computer, which is pretty as augmented and mixed reality as you get. All right, our last one for some of our more recent viewers and such. This is definitely an augmented reality experience, pretty sophisticated one at that. So what do you think?
I have a story about this one because I've seen this one. So I went to see it in theaters, naturally. And as I left theaters, I literally went to advising on my college campus to try to change my major to electrical engineering because I said, I want to do this. I did not graduate with a degree in electrical engineering, but it was definitely a stretch goal. But I will say this movie was probably one of the more inspirational for me. If I think back to where I felt like this tech is just like pretty cool to consider doing. I mean, so much so that I almost like changed my major. Yeah. But I really like it. And the fact that Robert Downey Jr. can just see everything in front of him, kind of like how now where we have cars where if you're driving, you can see like how fast you're going as well and whatever other little stats cars put in front of you when you're driving. I think that's really cool. Thomas, you know what this one is?
I am going to go with Iron Man.
Yes. You gotta love Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, I like Robert Downey Jr., but the sad part, and maybe I'm showing my age, is I remember him from.
You remember him when?
Zero. Like my Robert Downey Jr. I think is different than everybody else's, because I'm like, well, yeah, I remember him back in the day. Back to School is another one which I just absolutely loved him in. So yeah, it's and of course, all the time you hear about. When you talk about mixed reality and augmented reality, it's all about, people will be like, oh, like the Iron Man, visuals and things like that. And it's like, canonical.
Yeah, I have to agree. I chose this clip as our last one because this one was extremely inspirational for me. So shortly after I saw this movie for the first time, I think my manager at Microsoft asked me, hey, there's this new project that we're working on. That it's going to launch pretty soon. This would become HoloLens 1, the first time we launched HoloLens. And I had just seen this movie. He's like, hey, do you want to go and work on this? You have to go work with the engineering team and learn about it. It's completely different than anything you've ever done in web development or IoT or things like that. And I said, yes, I want to go do it because I want to go work on something just like the Iron Man suit. Not quite, but very similar. If you look at all of these different use cases, we see them in technology today, and it's super inspirational. So, well, very exciting. Thank you for y'all playing that and such. So let's go ahead and get into a little more Q&A about mixed reality itself. Let's just start with kind of your own preferences and things that you really like right now of the moment. Is there a particular MR experience, a game or a flyover or something that you really like right now? And why is that interesting to you?
I will say my go-to is always Richie Plank. And I know it's like old now for folks who may be tuning in and saying that's been out for a while, but I always suggest that people try out Richie's Plank. So for those of you who aren't aware of what the experience is, go to YouTube, type in Richie's Plank because you can see actual reactions. But what happens is you board this elevator and you take it all the way to the very top. You're in VR, by the way. Take it all the way to the very top. And when the door opens, Thomas, you might not like this. As you walk out, you're just on a plank at the top of the building.
Mm.
And it feels so real because you can look down, you can see the cars driving by. And then to make matters even worse, you can jump from the plank as well. And
Wow.
so, and you really get that feeling like you're falling. But outside of that, they also have this like kind of scary mode where at some point you enter this dark room and there's like these zombie kind of dead monster people chasing you. And when I did that, I had to take the device off because it got a little too real. But
Yeah.
I always tell folks, check that one out.
Wow.
How about you, Thomas?
There's I'm one of those people that I'm always trying out different things. So I would say probably the most experiences I use are sort of the default experiences. So when you first come in, sitting in a kind of made up home, right, or like a skyscraper, right? And I think that those are kind of nice because especially when the weather is bad, I don't feel like, hey, going out and taking a walk. But when I sit in those and I kind of meditate, I'm able to, feel like I just went out and took a walk and I'm very refreshed. Sometimes when work gets a little hectic, you just got to like hit the button, turn everything off, put the device on, and then it helps out a lot. I think what I like is the fact that these devices are kind of encompassing a lot of different experiences, right? So one of my favorite experiences is that there's a little panda in a winterland, and he walks you through meditation. And I just absolutely love it. It's just super charming. Although at the same time, I remember, hey, after that, I flew through the universe, which is pretty intriguing to understand, like how big our universe really is, right? Like how far the moon is away from us, how far some of the distant planets are. And it's hard to kind of understand that from just seeing something in 2D, but when you see it in 3D, it's like, wow, like I very much understand that. And then there's other times where I do, I play like the first 5 minutes of scary games, which is very weird because I'm a horror movie fan. But when I'm in a device, I can't handle it very much. I have that exit button just ready to go. And when something jumps out in front of me, it's way, way different, which I mean, totally makes sense. Again, it goes back to that. Hey, we have these devices that affect brain chemistry.
I have another one, Justin, if I can.
Please go for it.
Yeah. I also like Elven Assassin. And that's an archery game on, I played it on Quest. And the reason why I like it so much is that I competed in archery when I was in middle school. And so just being able to kind of relive those middle school moments, but like now at my very adult age, but you're kind of in this like medieval environment. And you have these different areas where you can stand to pretty much shoot the townspeople, not the townspeople, oh my goodness, to shoot the people that's the enemy and like these big kind of monsters. But it's cool because I imagine that outside of the device, you're just looking at me going like this. And that's all you see me doing. It doesn't require you to move around a lot, which is I really like, because when you are space constrained, it can be a bit more difficult to do some of the VR games, especially. So it's always nice to be able to be a bit more stationary while also feeling like you're actually probably moving around in a space.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I have difficulty grasping scope and scale when I'm just reading something. I read for content or I read for meaning, but I wouldn't say that I have like the most imaginative mind when I'm reading a book or something like that. And so mixed reality really helps me grasp the scope and scale of something. And so for me, One of the big ones was when I first got a chance to fly over a recreation of Pompeii in Italy in mixed
Mhm.
reality. And I was able to see this Roman city constructed before disaster struck. And then you could see what happened after, and I was able to grasp the idea of a tragedy like that, and what occurred, to appreciate history of it, to appreciate the power of Mother Nature and that and all of it as well. Very, very interesting. Well, I see we've got some questions from Learn TV here. So these are very, very related, because the next question I had for you all was devices, talking a little bit more about some of the latest mixed reality devices on there. Yeah, tell us a little bit more, like, what are your favorite devices out there on the market? What are you excited about? Maybe we'll talk a little about HoloLens as well.
Yeah, for me, it's literally my cell phone. Just given that I didn't have to go and invest in something new. There's so many different experiences for augmented reality that you can try out, whether it's on, in my case, I happen to have an iPhone, but if you happen to have an Android device, if you happen to have a tablet, and you'd be amazed just at what you can try out for AR, at least on your devices. For VR, I have my Oculus Quest, and
Mhm.
that's my go-to for whenever I'm doing anything VR. What about you, Thomas?
Yeah, I'm very familiar because it's mostly I probably spend most of my time in the HoloLens because of work and things like that. But from a consumer perspective, the HoloLens is not priced in that way. It's priced as an enterprise product, which it is at this time. And so for me, I've been looking at all the different types of devices depending on what it is that I'm doing, and then the where I've been really kind of intrigued are the glasses form factors. So, for example, I've been looking at the InReal offering very closely, and it's very kind of interesting to see what that will be versus kind of what we're seeing in kind of the larger scale devices, right? Because
Mhm.
these are much smaller. They typically have to use the phone as its compute. So you're probably going to see a lot less kind of like real deep augmented reality that we kind of talk about and is shown, and it's more focused on, hey, what is sort of the thing you need to get done, and in such a way that's kind of minimally viable. And
Mhm.
I kind of like that because I sort of feel that the consumer side of things is really going to take off when we have a device that's very affordable. And I think that the Oculus
Mhm.
Quest, for example, or MetaQuest, is probably the closest thing to that. But then once we have, like I said, the glasses form factor, I think we will think of augmented reality in a different way, and it won't be sort of these things you see where someone goes into a grocery store and coupons are popping out of there, and like, oh, your favorite food is blinking at you. No one wants that, right? I think that that's someone who's really enjoying kind of thinking of the future, but the future won't be like that, in my opinion. It's going to be very much like, hey, what is it that I want to do? What are the notifications that I want to get?
Mhm.
And then when I want an experience, of course, yeah, I want to watch Netflix on my wall, where instead of having a 5-inch television, I have kind of an infinite television as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, very cool. Well, we have a question on Learn TV for April, directed directly to you, April, which, what's
Yeah.
your favorite AR experience on the phone? Obviously, we know that phones are very, very popular and approachable devices for most people.
Yeah, so for me, when it comes to my phone and AR, I actually like playing around with the apps that allow you to create. And one that I really enjoy is there's actually a couple of them that does this, but more recently, I tried using Polycam just to create my own little mini April of myself. And
Yeah.
so I thought that was pretty cool to experience that. But I would say when it comes to AR and mobile, I just also like anything that's educational as well.
Mhm.
I have a very big soft spot in my heart for educational experiences. So there's not any one in particular that I can pinpoint and say that's the one for sure. But really, any educational experience I really like. But when it comes to like having fun and such, I think Polycam was the one that I used, and it was cool just to see a little me just on the table dancing. just doing a little dance. So that's one that I like.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we talked a little bit about consumer. Let's talk a little bit more about the work setting. Obviously, many people are working remotely nowadays. Hybrid work continues to be a thing that is very common. So what are some scenarios that you're seeing in the workplace or in commercial settings, educational settings as well, with respect to mixed reality?
Thomas, didn't you see a cool demo? I forgot which school's doing it, like the anatomy one.
Yeah, yeah. Me and a colleague got to sit in a class that was happening, and I apologize, I can't remember the university. But what was really cool about it was that here I am in my office, and literally, like right here, was kind of it was a model of the chest, and so it included the heart, and what was great was they could take parts away, so you could move away the muscle to see the heart. And then as you kind of got closer to the heart, you could actually go inside it to see all the different valves and things. And then the teacher was explaining things and putting kind of different tabs on things so that you could see that. And it was amazing because I was just like, wow, this is really immersive, and I very much can kind of understand the things that they were talking about, even though I haven't been to a university formally for a few years now. And so yeah, it was really just wonderful to sort of see that in action. And then the fortunate part is we do get to see a lot of good different apps that are being created, and some of them are like factory floor apps that you might think like, well, that's kind of dull and boring, but it's amazing some of the
Yeah.
stuff that they're able to do, especially like when someone is learning for the first time right on a factory floor. And used to, you'd have to take another person, sit them down there, and kind of like have them watch the whole day. But sometimes even then they weren't understanding it because they weren't doing it themselves. Whereas with augmented reality, they can go, hey, go to bin 1794-A, right? And like you would look over at the bins, and the bin would be lit up, right? Augmented
Yeah.
ones. And they could grab that, and then it would say like, hey, this is where this piece fits on this engine or on this thing. And it would tell you exactly where to put that. And so what happens is that like people are much, much, much more easily able to kind of like figure out like what to do, especially anytime you have kind of like people, places, and things, right? And that's what I always say for the enterprise. People will ask me like, would this make for a good augmented reality project? And I'm like, well, is it about people, places, and things coming together? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, okay, then most likely that's the litmus test that you can use for this.
Yeah, and in 2020, Thomas and I actually met in a virtual space to have one of
Yeah.
our one-on-one meetings, and it was cool because we do a lot of video chat, kind of like how like we're doing right now. But to be able to meet together, we were both wearing HoloLens One, and it was as though Thomas was actually in my office with me, even though we're like states away from one another. And it just felt so real having him there. And one thing that I was able to take away, and I think Thomas also more or less felt the same way, is that being in the same space, kind of physically, virtually with one another, it makes the interactions more engaging because it's kind of like they're there. They can kind of, they see you as you're moving around. And I don't know, it's just something about actually seeing that person in your actual space, although they're just pretty much kind of like a hologram of that person. And that was like way before a lot of the announcements came to be within the past, the end of like 2021. So we're talking about back in 2020, which goes to show you that this sort of technology has been around for a while. We might hear about it a lot more now, but there's been platforms where you can have these sort of experiences. But I think we're all heading in a direction where the experiences are improving and getting even better, I would say, which is something that I'm really looking forward to. But just being able to just meet together in a space, not on like a 2D screen, but more so like similar to the images that you were showing, Justin. That's really what it felt like.
Yeah.
And I thought it was cool. I think it's a good alternative to doing video chats.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, as a person where I spend most of my work life in a video chat, I mean, so first of all, that as a technology, that is profound into itself. The fact that, people with an internet connection can be in
Mhm.
community and relate to each other through that. That in itself, I try not to forget just how profound that scenario is and how important that has been for families and for friends and for coworkers to be productive and be in community with each other. That being said, I think the term pandemic fatigue or fatigue, video
Mhm.
chat fatigue, is something that's come into the public conscious. Like there is something that's not uncommon for me to have 8+ hours of video conferences a day, sometimes depending on the day and such. And so the idea that we could start to collaborate in a virtual world is very appealing to me. I think there's lots of things that it requires for us to get there to make that feel easy and natural. But that's also become kind of wrapped up into a buzzword that at least I've heard lately, which is meta or
Mhm.
metaverse. And so your comment, April, is a great segue to the next part of this series that I wanted to cover is about the metaverse and how we start to transform individual mixed reality experiences into collective experiences and such. And so what is your view and perspective of where we are in the metaverse and where we need to go?
Yeah, I feel that conceptually, it's metaverse is something that's been around for a while, and now that we have a new phrase to refer to what is augmented reality and virtual reality, I
Mhm.
feel that we're just continuing along with where things were heading, with the exception of the fact that things are probably going to be accelerating a bit faster now
Mhm.
as folks are building technologies to support what people identify as the metaverse. And in my head, whenever I think of metaverse and probably people's perception of it, it's likely what people probably experience in Ready Player One, where
Mhm.
everything's virtual, everyone just puts on their device, and we all have at it in this virtual space. Whether we can get to a point where that is reality for the world, I don't fully believe we can. There's so many different reasons why, primarily when it comes to having just in general digital divide amongst like across the world. And we're still at a point where not everyone has internet
Yeah.
access, and the internet has been around for years. So the fact that we haven't resolved that problem leads me to believe that
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get to a point where the metaverse is something that's going to be, or reading in these virtual spaces is going to be something that everyone in the world would
Yeah.
engage in.
Yeah.
However, I feel that there is opportunity for folks to be connected in that manner more, for sure. And a lot of it's going to come down to adoption. And that's also kind of what makes me a bit more fearful is probably not the right word, but I can't find another word. But it's the fact that there's going to be a lot of people who are interested in doing things in these virtual spaces with no real experience, and they might not be aware of the safety
Yeah.
that is also at risk when it comes to engaging. But I do feel there are some cool use cases for using it. But I'm always thinking about that person who might not fully benefit from it
Yeah.
conceptually, and that's personal opinion on it.
No, I really appreciate that perspective because I think those are some of those things: customer privacy, data, and how all people can participate. Even internet bandwidth. To your point, the
Yeah.
metaverse is going to require more bits through the wires than a video conference or just a teleconference, VoIP or whatnot as well. So it's something to be very mindful of. Absolutely. What do you think, Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the metaverse is this sort of conceptual thing that we're striving towards, right? Because we all know that we're very early in this sort of technology, right? AR, VR, XR. Someone put a joke on Twitter that the term metaverse is our punishment for not coming up with a better name for this kind of technology. And I'm a believer that the metaverse will come. It just will not show up in the way that we think. Like, I don't think it's going to be sort of this movie-esque type of thing. I don't think that it is going to be this sort of I've heard it being called like a mirror world, where hey, it's exactly like our world, except now it's digital, because a lot of the things that April talked about, and for example, what happens when someone says, okay, we're going to sell off blocks of parcel that is in the real world, but it's rendered digitally, my house. So is someone able to say, yeah, I live at this place, right, in the metaverse, when maybe that they don't. And so there's a lot of those kinds of questions that I think that we haven't done a good job of answering, partly because this is new. And guess what? Every time we have these new things, we like to think we learned the first time, but a lot of those same issues. So, the issues we had with the internet, the issues we had with app store models, right? Like those things will come back again and again. And I think once you've been around a while, you're just kind of like, yeah, we're not going to get it right the first time. We're going to learn some very hard lessons here. But I do think that it will exist. It just probably won't exist in the way that we think. And it will be probably normal. Like, I don't think what will happen is, people will go, hey, I'm going to be back. I'm going to be in the metaverse for an hour. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think for some people, the metaverse is going to be, hey, I'm in a new city and I don't know how to get to this place. So within my device, it's telling me where to go and giving me walkabout paths. For some folks, it's going to be, hey, like young people, right? Young people find ways of communicating together, right? No matter what, especially within the constraints of mom and dad owning the router and being able to kind of watch them. And they sure enough will find a way to, hey, let's get this app that our parents don't know about, and we can all talk to each other. So there's going to be spaces there in the metaverse that are like that. And then I would say the two kind of fears I have is that big vendor companies and industrious companies, they understand that there's value here, right? They see the inevitability as well. That's why they're throwing lots of money and lots of resources at it. And I think it's very easy to get cynical at first, right? Like, what? I don't play games. Why would I want to be in the metaverse, right? But, I always tell people, like, hey, remember social, when people used to say, why would I look at social media and see what somebody ate for lunch? Well, guess what? I'm been on social for a while, and I still star and favorite people's lunches, on different social media. So I think it's very easy also to get very cynical about this and go, oh, this is just this hyped up term. And I agree, right? We're going to go through that hype cycle, and that's fine. But once we get to the other side, it's going to get very practical, and it's just going to be something that we do that we're just not going to think much about. We're just going to know, like, oh, I have a meeting today, with the spatial team, and, we're meeting, quote unquote, in the metaverse. It'll just be sort of a thing we do. We don't really think about it much.
Yeah, we've got a couple questions on Learn TV that are to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing here, but really talking about the openness of the metaverse and different development platforms. Where do you see development platforms for the metaverse going, cross-consumer or commercial scenarios?
Thomas, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, I think we're still trying to figure that out. What's going to dominate? I think we would love to say, like, hey, everything is going to be very open, and I think that the folks who are in this for the long haul, we're very much looking at the internet and the web as sort of a pattern for what we do, because the web really felt that it was a great equalizer. Right. Apple has a website. You as an individual have a website. There was an equality to it. And then the platform itself was very easy to build for. And I think this is something that we have to do. And I'm using the collective we, including Microsoft. We have to do a much better job at content creation, because one of the things we hear constantly is, people love it, right? Like when we go to universities and schools, people love, like, yes, we want to use this, and we want to use this in our classes to teach. And then they're like, okay, but now we want to create our own content. And then it's like, Oh, okay. Well, let's get you a gaming PC. Let's get you a multi-thousand-dollar device. Let's, learn Unity or Unreal or, what have you. And so I think we need to, and April is probably getting tired of me saying this, but I'm like, we need a visual basic of mixed reality
Yeah,
because I think that's one of those things where we need something where it's like, yeah, 80% of what you want to do you can do very easily. If I want a, garden gnome on my desk, it shouldn't take me 2 hours to get everything together and all the tools and learning and things. It should be like, hey, I have this, this application where I can drag my, my formatted
Yeah.
object in there and that it's good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I will say one thing that's been interesting with that respect is that it almost seems as though every platform kind of has their own like rules with regards to how you can use it. And so over the weekend, as I was just trying out some different low code, no code options, which are great. And I think that also kind of more or less allows, like what Thomas is talking for, a much more approachable manner of getting that garden gnome on your desk. The challenge, however, is that, there's certain even like model file extensions that are accepted in one and not in another. And then you're pretty much stuck trying to figure out, well, how can I convert my models to an appropriate format so that
yeah,
way I can bring them into my experience. And so that's something that tends to make things a little more difficult. If you are creating on different platforms. It's also something that's slightly related, but when it comes to hardware as well, especially when we're thinking about, I was reading up on even the use of like adaptive controllers, for
yeah,
example, for VR. And even though these sort of controllers exist, which are controllers to help folks to be able to put an input for whatever the experience is. So might not be the standard controller for a device, but it might be this other controller that may help someone who may have challenges using the standard controller. So that's going to be your adaptive controllers. The
yeah,
problem is that the different platforms kind of also have their own I don't want to call it rules, and I don't want to call it standards, but it's their own way that you can and can't implement using those sort of controllers with their particular platform. So not everything is seamless across the board, and that
yeah,
makes it difficult as well. But I tend to lean more along the lines of, if you are starting out with developing for this area and you're trying to get an idea of like what platform I should even utilize, I would say test the waters with some, I would say. I mean, you're probably not going to be able to try every single platform under the sun. There's just so many. And then there's always folks building new ones. But really get good with at least one. And
mhm,
for me, like Unity is that one that I've gotten pretty decent with. For someone else, it might be something that's more for the web that is probably going to be more up their alley. But if you're concerned as to whether you're investing enough time in one particular direction, uh, I would say right now it's kind of hard to say what will and won't be the biggest. I just say stick with one platform for now, get really good at it. And honestly, also, once you start to get to know one, if you decide to migrate or transition to another, there's some stuff that kind of carries over in terms of
yeah,
functionality. So it's kind of like learning a new programming language. Once you learn one, you can pick up another one. Yeah, there will be different syntax rules here and there, but it does make it a bit more approachable to learn another.
yeah. I think that's good advice for our developers and hobbyists and students out there that are trying to learn your first platform and get more involved in mixed reality and such. This might come from my background doing web for a little while, but I kind of think of it as, we're at an early stage where there's all these different platforms and we're innovating through those platforms. But I do believe there will be a sort of convergence where we start to accept, a standard that could be a web standard or it
Mhm.
could be another set of standards in the future. There are some other standards that we do generally accept. For example, we generally accept now input modalities, such as head tracking or eye tracking, or we understand, the very basics of which controllers, mixed reality devices that have controllers, mixed reality devices that are hands-free, and
Mhm.
why that is important, particularly like in commercial or industrial use cases. And so I do think like pick something and stick with it. And we're talking about devices earlier too. Sometimes the price point of devices is prohibitively high, but fortunately, a lot of these products have simulators built in to
Yes.
them. And so even HoloLens, you can experiment with HoloLens and not own a HoloLens yourself. I think
Mhm.
that's exciting, as well.
Yeah. And I would say, honestly, even though I have a HoloLens, when I am creating for the device, I would say I spend more time simulating in like Unity editor, if anything,
Yeah.
before even deploying to my device. So that's what I like to tell folks too when they're interested in doing things with HoloLens or even the content that we have that's available in Microsoft Learn. We don't require that you have the device to create the applications and to try them out at least on the computer, but you can get pretty far, I would say. And that's another thing that I tend to tell folks as well, that people who are eager to try, sometimes they're under the impression that, oh, I need to get a device like right now just to create something, and you literally don't. There,
Mhm.
you can try out things in a lot of these different platforms, literally, like as you mentioned, in the simulator. And I would say, especially if you're newer, try creating first, because the worst thing that you can do is invest in a device only to realize like a month later you hate like the whole whatever you're working on, and then
Yeah.
you're stuck with the device. So use the simulators, they will be your friends.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Microsoft Learn. We do have some great learning paths for those that are interested in exploring this more. Those includes things like sandboxes or exploring Unity or VS Code and the like. So be sure to check out some of the links I have here on the screen there. But April, you bridged to our last part of the topic, which is skilling. We always try to tie this series back to skilling and the opportunity for developers and hobbyists and everyone to be able to explore new tech. What types of skills do you feel like an aspiring software engineer, developer needs to acquire in order to learn mixed reality more and more?
Yeah, I honestly, whenever this question comes up, I don't head always towards the coding skills. To me, it's the conceptual and theoretical that I
Mhm.
tend to stay more in that area. Because if you don't understand how to work in the 3D space, it can be difficult when you are working with objects and placement. It's important to know the impact of light as well as color. Is also very important. And then my most favorite area is ethics. That's a really big
Yeah,
area
yeah,
that tends to get brushed over. And I feel as though you have to understand the concepts plus the ethics, in addition to the coding as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
But those pieces are going to be really, really big, important pieces to know. Now, if you're brand new and you just want to try something, try creating an app of whatever platform you're interested in. 9 times out of 10, there's going to be a Hello World example, which is going to be just that intro tutorial that you can try out. Start off with that. And then as you're going through different tutorials, there may be a mention of something like a concept where you're like, I don't quite know what that is. Choose
Mhm.
that topic after you complete the tutorial and then go find more content on it. That'll be super helpful. But I think understanding more some of the 3D related concepts, different input models that are available as well is going to be really helpful. Lighting is going to be helpful, color as well, and then just the general ethics around it. And so, not quite the coding skills, but what I consider to be some of the even more important skills to make sure that you have.
Yeah. Thomas, what do you think?
Yeah, one of the things I usually do is kind of start to ask questions, right? Of like, well, where is their interest, right? So are they more design oriented or are they more coding oriented? Is it someone? What are the types of applications they want to build? Because that can kind of dictate sort of the
Mhm.
direction that you go. If they are very web centric, what I will typically do is recommend them our we have a JavaScript library called Babylon JS. which
Yeah.
is in browser 3D. I will recommend them to do that. So a lot of it kind of depends on the person themselves and kind of what they want to get out of it. But yeah, we definitely, there's some other parts to this industry that isn't just about devs. And I think that that's the thing we always have to remember, that there are these things that we need to think about, like, interaction, right? Like we're not done with interaction, right? Like even in HoloLens 1, we were all doing this, right?
Yeah.
And then,
We were.
I remember that.
yeah, and the data showed us, like, we thought everyone knew how to do this. Turns out it is not easy. And also too, a lot of people would have to move their hands so that the device could see the fingers doing the thing, right? So we're learning all the time, and like what we know now will be very different than what will be in the future. And we'll laugh, because there will be times where we'll be like, remember when we used to have to download the SDK and we had to learn, scene understanding, and then now, and then later on it'll be like, yeah, all of these things are just baked in and kind of natural thought processes. And that's the other hard part too, is that, so long we've been doing everything in 2D that when you now gotta go to 3D, it's a totally different way of thinking about things. And so you can't necessarily look at what you did before and go, yeah, just do that, but now it's in this place. It's a very different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interactions. Oh.
No, please go ahead, April.
I was going to say, just to your point, Thomas, about interactions, over the weekend, I saw a demo. I forgot the name of the device, but the person who was doing the demo, they were using their brain waves to control an output of something. And it was for an augmented reality experience. I forgot the exact device that it was called, but just to your point, there's so many more ways to interact with, whether it's AR or VR, some that may not even be like a thing right now, but there's just so much more to learn, and we're all still learning, and there's always going to be something new. But I think that's what also makes it really exciting as well. But go ahead, Justin. Yeah. That was all.
No, this is great. I want to come back to one of the points you made, April, about the importance of ethics. And in one of the episodes that we discussed in This Just In was the ethics of AI and the ethics. We talked a little bit more about data privacy and safety and things like that. And so just like artificial intelligence, I do believe that mixed reality is one of those domains where we as engineers, we as hobbyists or developers, we have to consider all these different dimensions beyond just the coding aspect, the software building aspect itself. And so for those of you out there who haven't checked out those episodes, it's a great one with Amy Boyd on AI of ethics. I personally recommend that. It's a good discussion. But also that those things are incredibly important part of mixed reality. And this is not a short-term hype, in my opinion. I think mixed reality is something that we're going to see play out throughout the 21st century in parallel to other very, very crucial spaces like sustainable software engineering and AI certainly as well. Thomas, you mentioned input, for example. Like, I really like the Azure Cognitive Services and natural language processing and language understanding as a very, very crucial technology for what makes a really high quality mixed reality experience too. And so it's not just one thing, it's a little of everything. And that's what makes mixed reality so interesting.
Exactly. And the thing is that, we have to think of folks with disabilities, right? Everyone should be a part of the metaverse, or be able to participate equally in the metaverse. And so a lot of times I will blow people's minds when they're asking me for architecture guidance or what have you. And I'll say, okay, what do you do for blind participants? And they kind of give me that stare of like, well, I don't think blind people would use this. And I'm like, no, I go, there are blind people playing Call of Duty, right? And I said, so you have to think about that. And what's great is for folks who, are really interested in spatial audio, which is again, a whole other subset of this world, they can really dig in and think about that. So we do need to think about that, because I think it's going to be very easy right now when it's kind of the gold rush and everyone's looking to kind of have that new coolest thing to say, well, we'll build experiences, but it's only going to be for, this microverse that people are talking about, or what have you. And I think we've got to be very upfront and say, no, we have to fix these things and we need to do these now. Accessibility can't be something that is like, well, it'll be good to have once we figure these other things. It's like, No, it should be first and foremost. And if we can't do it, like if we say like literally the technology can't do it, then we have another big conversation as an industry.
Yeah, and indeed, to build on that point, Thomas, mixed reality doesn't necessarily just have to be about the visual. Like we spend so much time thinking about
Exactly.
light pass through and AR versus VR, but in fact, your point on spatial audio is that a mixed reality experience can be native to people who are differently abled in that as well. I really appreciate it. So. Well, we are just about out of time. Thank you, April. Thank you, Thomas, so much. It was a great discussion. So I really appreciate you joining. For those of you out there listening to this, again, we got some great learning materials for you. Hit us up on Twitter and check out the rest of the This Just In series on our GitHub repo. It has all upcoming ones. Thanks, April. Code. At Tommy Lee, I believe, is Thomas is there. Yes, it's on the screen, and I'm at Jessgar. So thank you all again, and have a great day.
Right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.